Hey everyone, and welcome to another Game Explained discussion. I'm your host, Derek Bittner, and I'm joined today by Ash Paulson to discuss the Fire Emblem Direct. So let's get started. Alright Ash, so the Fire Emblem Direct wrapped up just a few minutes ago, not too long ago, and I'd say it was generally pretty good. I don't think it's perfect, but there were some pretty good announcements in there. But what are you generally feeling about this Direct?
I mean, I feel like if I was like a hardcore Fire Emblem fan, I'd be pretty happy, because I don't know if anyone saw the announcement of Fire Emblem Echoes coming. Like, that's a full, well, not, I don't want to say new, but a full quote-unquote new Fire Emblem game for the 3DS, which is, I don't think anyone saw that coming, so, or at least I know I didn't, so I think it's a pretty good Direct. One thing I can say for sure is that I think we got more information than any of us expected to. Like, I think we were expecting this to be kind of like okay, cool, Fire Emblem Warriors is happening, Fire Emblem Mobile, here you go, some information. No, we got a lot more than that. It was definitely blow by blow.
Yeah, it was very well handled, very well structured. It all just flew kind of well, and it was great to have Yuri Lowenthal, like, do the, just cover everything, because he's been part of the series. He's voiced a couple of the characters here and there, so I think he does play Marth, if memory serves me correctly.
Yes, I believe so.
So that's just kind of perfect. Maybe we'll actually get to voice him in Smash next time around. But yeah, let's just go ahead and break this down, starting with Fire Emblem Echoes, because I agree with you. I did see a lot of people hoping that maybe we'll get a translation of one of the old games. That'd be really cool, and I did not expect a full-blown remake in the vein of this, because there have been Fire Emblem remakes before. Shadow Dragon was one on the DS, but apparently that wasn't a very good remake, and there was a better remake of the third game that was released on the DS, but that did not come to the US because Shadow Dragon sold so poorly. We didn't get we didn't get our next Fire Emblem until Awakening, which of course just blew up. And so it's really interesting to see them go back and cover Gaiden, and I don't really hear much about Gaiden too often, but the differences that they outlined here in this Direct make me super excited for it. This is a very different take on Fire Emblem, and I'm kind of okay with that.
Yeah, I have to say I am too, because I was rewatching the Direct just to kind of, familiarize myself with Echoes more, and it looks like there are dungeons and like random encounters that you can actually run into an enemy on the field, and then you're transported to a more traditional Fire Emblem battle screen. And I love that idea. Like, I had no idea that Fire Emblem Gaiden differed from the core Fire Emblem series like that to begin with. I had no idea there was a Fire Emblem out there that played a little more like a traditional RPG with dungeons and encounters and things like that. So this actually really interests me, to be honest.
Yeah, they've played around with some of these ideas in later games, but at the time, I did a little bit of research before going into this, Gaiden was sort of considered the black sheep of the series, very much like other sequels on the NES and Famicom.
Like Zelda 2, for example.
Yeah, and Super Mario Bros. 2 that we got in the USA. It's just one of those weird things that took a lot of the ideas and changed them up. But again, it is basically combining a traditional RPG with the Fire Emblem formula. And I gotta say, that works pretty well, because this is already just so RPG-ish to begin with. And to just take that even further, I'm okay with this.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I really enjoyed my time with Fire Emblem Fates. I had no real problems with it, but I've always been more, I've always kind of fallen more closer to the traditional RPG bent than the strategy RPG one. So a Fire Emblem game that kind of combines the two schools of thought is really exciting to me.
I mean, we're taking an NES story and expanding upon it, so hopefully it's decent. I mean, it's hard to say. I don't know anything about the plot other than the summary we got from that opening bit, but we got two main characters, a interesting sort of setup with the two different gods totally corrupting their societies in completely different ways, which I think is a pretty interesting way to start it, because, like, who's the good guy in this? Because I don't consider either of those gods doing well with what they did what they did to their people. So, also, how does the war god not just completely decimate the lazy god?
Well, because then we wouldn't have a story, right?
I guess so.
Then we wouldn't have this game happening at all. So no, I hear what you're saying. I don't know anything about the original story either. So I'm, assuming I have time to go and play this beyond, whatever coverage we do of it, it'll be kind of fun to discover this story for the first time. And as you said, this is an NES story, or a story from an NES game. I would be surprised if they weren't taking some creative liberties and really fleshing things out more than they were able to do back in the NES days.
I will say I do love the new artwork, all the redesigned characters. Like, you saw the box art in the Direct. Like, to take those characters and then modernize them, they look good. I generally like Fire Emblem's art style, and this is just another example of that. And there seems to be, like, at least some voice acting in the game. It might be the same level of voice acting as previous games, but maybe because it is an NES game and maybe not as big as some of the others, we might get full voice acting this time. I don't know. For some reason, I got a sense that there was more voice acting than usual, just from that little taste that we got during the Direct.
Perhaps. I didn't get that sense myself, but, I mean, that's possible, and it would be cool. I mean, I know, obviously, Fire Emblem Fates and Awakening, they have these kind of canned voice lines for, like, specific conversations, but they're very general and not specific to the lines. So I think it'd be cool if we got like full voice acting in Echoes. I keep wanting to say Conquest. I don't know why. It's Echoes. There's so many words that Fire Emblem goes with now. It's hard to keep them all straight. But Echoes.
Yeah, it's kind of funny how they just do all that. But for the longest time, we go typing it up. It's like Echoes. What the heck was this called? I was like rushing to get it up and trying to keep it straight, and especially with all the different Fire Emblem titles being thrown, I'm like, oh my god.
I know, seriously.
And but no, I mean, I don't really have too much else to say other than I'm really excited for this. Like, I'm especially, actually, there is one other big thing to say about the game itself. It's coming May 19th everywhere. Not just Japan. We're not waiting 6 months for the next, like, how long did it take for us to get Fates? Like, they came out in, like, summer in Japan, and we didn't get until, like, February or something that.
And then Europe didn't even get it until that May, I think.
Yeah,
I think Europe had to wait even longer.
Exactly. And, there's always been this thing about Fire Emblem just taking forever to localize, and that's not the case with Echoes. That is huge for Fire Emblem.
It is huge. And not only that, it's worldwide, same day, May 19th. And, what's really also huge is that Nintendo, being the incredibly leaky ship that they are, managed to keep this under wraps. Like, we didn't know about this. No, this didn't even leak any time before this announcement today, which is, it seems like it's becoming rarer and rarer for that to happen. So,
yeah.
I'm just surprised that it's coming out within, it's basically 4 months from tomorrow, and we didn't hear about it until today, which is really exciting.
Yeah, I mean, it's coming quick. Nobody knew about it, and good on them for that. I guess everybody was so focused on the Switch, they didn't consider another 3DS title. And I gotta say, this really gives a good game for 3DS to maybe go out on, because 3DS is all of a sudden showing some life.
Well, see, that's the thing, and you and Andre and I have been talking about this, and regardless of how we feel about Nintendo continuing the 3DS alongside the Switch, I've been saying for a while that I don't think Nintendo is going to unceremoniously kill the 3DS off alongside the Wii U. It seems like they really are committed to this dual hardware feature where they have the Switch and the 3DS coexisting side by side. And to me, Fire Emblem Echoes is proof of that. I mean, that's proof positive. It seems like they really are sticking by the 3DS for better and worse.
Yeah. I mean, obviously we know that, we'll get into this a little bit later, but of course, Fire Emblem Warriors coming to the 3DS. That's big in and of itself, just because that's also on the Switch. And yeah, they really are supporting it. Now, granted, it's not a brand new game, it is a remake, but that's still a lot more effort than you'd expect for the supposed last year of the 3DS. So who knows what we're in for? It's kind of crazy. And I feel like they're really banking on this, if only because they're getting amiibo support too.
Yeah, which now, the irony that we're seeing Alm and Celica amiibo before Corrin has even... we haven't even seen Corrin yet, and he/she was added to Smash, more than a year ago now? Or no, a little under a year ago. Mm-hmm. And we haven't even seen Corrin. So yeah, we got Alm and Celica launching alongside Fire Emblem Echoes in a 2-pack. But we don't know yet how the game will actually make use of them. So I'm hoping this is not like a thing where only Echoes will make use of these amiibo, and then no other games, maybe outside of like Fire Emblem Warriors. Sorry. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I wonder how widely these amiibo will actually be used.
I'm not sure, but the funny thing is, I'm probably going to pick these up because I just have this thing where I have to get all the Fire Emblem amiibo because
Nice.
Fire Emblem stuff is just not that common. Like, I have the entire set of Fire Emblem stuff from the Smash line. I was going to pick up Corrin whenever that happens, and, well, I'm going to pick up Almond Celica because, again, it's Fire Emblem merchandise. That does not happen, and
Right.
I gotta say, this bodes well. So we have the first game in the series and the second game in the series now localized, and I believe it was the 7th game, so hopefully we can get 3 through 6 localized at some point too, because there's a lot of fan favorites that for the people who've played translated versions of like Genealogy of the Holy War or Thracia 776, I believe it is, and those are apparently tough, but they're also really good. So I'd love to see Nintendo localize or remake or do something with these other titles, and maybe these remakes are the best way to do it.
Yeah, that may very well be. If anything, I think the major takeaway here is that I don't think a lot of Western Fire Emblem fans ever expected the series to become this big in the West. Like, there's no doubt now that Fire Emblem is absolutely one of Nintendo's A-list series. Like, it sits right up there with Kirby, I would say, in terms of, its visibility and how really its popularity now. Like, Fire Emblem has absolutely blown up thanks to Awakening and Fates.
Which is insane to think about. This is a strategy RPG. One of the least common ideas behind any type of series being to be popular. Yeah, there's some out there that get a cult status, but not even Final Fantasy Tactics blew up in this way. Like, people love that game, but it did not blow up in the same way that Fire Emblem did with Awakening. And again, this is a series that was almost dead. Awakening was supposed to be its last hurrah, and all of a sudden we have 4 new games coming out within the next 2 years, and that's incredible for Fire Emblem.
No, and I mean, I think they really tapped into something with Awakening in terms of really, kind of overhauling the series art style. You have this really approachable anime art style that has a much wider appeal. You have the dating sim elements, which I know a lot of hardcore Fire Emblem fans don't like, and I understand that, but I feel that has helped Fire Emblem really appeal to a wider demographic than just the hardest core of the hardcore strategy RPG fans, which is exactly what it needed to live.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it needed to tap into that market, and I don't know whether intentionally or unintentionally, it found a way. And, for those hardcore players, this game will not have that. However, again, I found this out in my research, there was a difficulty select in the original Fire Emblem Gaiden. There was normal and easy,
Okay.
I don't know if easy turned off like the permadeath, but it definitely made you gain more experience with each battle. So we can definitely expect the same sort of options that we've probably seen in more recent Fire Emblem titles to be in Echoes.
Oh yeah, no doubt. And if I remember correctly, I think I remember hearing that the Birthright version of Fire Emblem Fates was the best-selling version. And if so, I mean, that would make sense from Nintendo's standpoint because that was the easier one. That was the more approachable, non-hardcore difficulty one. So it does make sense that Nintendo would want to keep this series approachable to all skill levels going forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very likely. You know what would be kind of fun? I know it's not going to happen, but if they actually had like a bonus where you could unlock the original Fire Emblem Gaiden to play on the game. Like,
that would be so cool.
But I mean,
then they would have to translate that, and I doubt they would do it.
Yeah, that's totally true. But it's one of those things to just go back and compare, because I like that transition they had where they went from the old school and like, here's the same mission, just updated. And yeah. So overall, honestly, for me personally, this is the highlight of the Direct. They started out very strong.
Oh yeah, no doubt for me. This is the highlight. I mean, that's the thing is I'm not coming at this from the perspective of a years-long hardcore Fire Emblem fan. So to me, this is something, or Echoes is something I can get into with the ground level. I don't need any prior knowledge of any other games in the series. And I know you could say that about other games in the series as well, but this truly is a Gaiden. This is like a side story, like kind of a different take on Fire Emblem. So I don't feel as if I need to have a lot of experience with the rest of the series to understand what's going on here.
Yep, just jump right in. And, going off that, I mean, we have this one, but we also got the announcement of Fire Emblem Switch. It's coming, it's planned for 2018. We'll see if it actually sticks to that release date or not, because they made a point of not being coming. It's, planned for release in 2018. So I wouldn't, nail down that date yet, but still, finally another console Fire Emblem game, and I think that's a very good strategy for the Switch, to put a Fire Emblem game on there, take advantage of the graphical capabilities of the Switch, and there you go. All of a sudden you have this game to potentially tap into the market that's already there, or convince more people to pick it up.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, I'm surprised they would even announce the existence of a Fire Emblem game for Switch this far out in advance, but I guess maybe they just want series fans to perhaps invest in a Switch knowing that that's coming down the line. And yeah, I mean, this is the first console Fire Emblem game I think we've seen since Radiant Dawn. Is that correct?
Correct.
On
On Wii.
Yeah, so... on Wii, yeah, GameCube was Path of Radiance, yeah, Radiant Dawn was Wii, and... yeah, I mean, I don't think we really expected Fire Emblem to come back to console since Awakening and Fates. Really, that's where the series has done absolute gangbusters, which is on handhelds. But the argument could be made that Switch is technically a handheld as well. So it just, more than anything, it makes me wonder how the two, again, coexist. I mean, we've got, obviously this is until 2018, but already we have a new Fire Emblem game that's exclusive to the 3DS family, and then another traditional Fire Emblem game that's coming to Switch, and will probably be exclusive to Switch as well. So I'm just wondering how these two systems continue to coexist side by side.
That's a good question. I'm honestly not sure, but I do think the mobility factor of Switch will help this Fire Emblem game quite a bit, because people taking it on the go, wherever you want to play, get a certain short burst in, or however you want to do it. It's a good idea, and to see how they evolve the series, because I played the original Fire Emblem back when it first came out, but I never completed it. I kind of just sort of stopped and played something else, because good luck playing a long form RPG on the original Game Boy Advance with no backlit screen. That was a nightmare. So it just never happened. But then I picked up Path of Radiance on the GameCube, and that got me into the series. And I tried playing Radiant Dawn, and that game kicked my ass. That game,
there you go.
For as approachable as the Wii was supposed to be, Radiant Dawn is one of the hardest games in this series. It is brutal. So I don't think they're going to go with that kind of difficulty for the Switch version. But if there is like GameCube and Wii support for classic games, guarantee you Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn will both end up on the Switch Virtual Console.
Oh yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if there was an adjustable difficulty level in Fire Emblem Switch anyway. That seems to be the kind of that seems to be the case going forward.
Yeah, that's a guarantee now. That's never going to change. That difficulty will always be there. Having casual mode where characters do not stay dead, that is definitely key. And that doesn't bother me at all, because the option to play Classic mode is always there. They are never going to get rid of Classic mode. But yeah, Fire Emblem Switch, totally on board with. Cannot wait to see what it actually entails. But I have a feeling that's probably a pretty long way off.
Oh yeah, no, I mean it's. I would be surprised. I mean, it's. I don't think we'll even hear about this at E3.
No. We might get a teaser, but I doubt that. I think they're going to focus on Fire Emblem Warriors instead.
Totally.
And real quick before we move on to Warriors, Echo's simultaneous release makes me very hopeful for a Switch simultaneous release. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, that's something that and that's also, I mean, to bring another worldwide release into it, Breath of the Wild. So Nintendo seems to be really pushing for worldwide releases now on a lot of its big games. Mm-hmm. So let's hope this is something they continue to do, because it's absolutely something they should strive to do if they can.
Yeah. And, with the region free of the Switch, easy to import. So if you really want to struggle through the Japanese version of Switch, you could totally do that if it comes out early. But we'll see. But as we said, they also showed off Fire Emblem Warriors, which was mostly just the same trailer we saw at the Switch event, except that they had an extended ending where we did see that was indeed Chrom, and then we saw Chrom fighting a bunch of soldiers and pulling off one of his special moves, and then we got an announcement that, hey, it's also coming to new 3DS. So
that's pretty comforting for new 3DS owners who really want to play that version on the go. I'm not at all surprised that they left the old 3DS out. I mean, when you take a look at Hyrule Warriors and you see how badly it ran on the original 3DS, not surprised they're not even trying to get Fire Emblem Warriors running on that.
No, not going to happen. I was genuinely surprised though that they're supporting the 3DS, the new 3DS, or even just with this game. Like, I expected this to be a Switch exclusive.
Yeah, I mean, and again, going back to what I said earlier, now we're going to have the same game coexisting side by side on 3DS and Switch, and I'm just wondering what Nintendo's angle is here, because this is literally the same game, not two different games in the same series, but actually the same game. And obviously the Switch version is going to look and sound much better if Hyrule Warriors is anything to go by, and it is. So I am really curious as to what Nintendo's angle is here by bringing this to 3DS as well.
I almost wonder, and I don't know if this is, obviously, I kind of doubt this is the thought process behind it, but I can almost see it being, well, if we put out a 3DS version and we also have this Switch version, which you can also take on the go, people will look at the two and be like, well, heck, I can take the Switch version on the go, and that looks way better than the 3DS version, so maybe the 3DS version's being put out to die unless you're a diehard that just cannot get a Switch or don't care about the Switch. But otherwise, people will look at the difference and be like, well, heck, I'll get the Switch version if I want to play this game.
Right. And of course, Nintendo is banking on the fact that the opposite won't happen, which is, well, I mean, I already have a 3DS and this game's available on both. I don't really want to spend more money on a Switch and graphics don't matter to me. So I'm just going to pick up the 3DS version. So Nintendo clearly is banking on the fact that my scenario will not happen and yours will. and I think that I'm not necessarily saying that what I thought will actually happen. I'm curious as to what their angle is and the risks that they think they're taking on. But I think that your thought process makes a little more sense. It's like, okay, I can spend more money but get this much more high-powered system that comes with the same game in this case that looks a lot better. So I think more along what you said, along the lines of what you said, is what's going to happen. But it's just interesting nonetheless.
Yeah, it totally is. So we shall see, but what did you think of that little bit of gameplay we saw of Fire Emblem Warriors?
I mean, what little we saw looked great. Hyrule Warriors, I always thought that game looked, pretty nice on Wii U, especially compared to the 3DS version. And this looks, of course, even beyond that, because we're dealing with more powerful hardware than the Wii U. And yeah, just that small look of Chrom doing a special attack, I thought it looked great. But again, I'm already thinking this is the kind of game, just based on that clip alone, I would much rather play on Switch than 3DS, because Hyrule Warriors, even on new 3DS, was not a looker, even in a minor sense.
Yeah, exactly. No, I agree with you. It's pretty much what you'd expect. It's Chrom fighting a huge swath of enemy units and then unleashing one of his specials, but with a nice touch of course, the critical hit screen showing up before you do that, right, his special attack. So, that it's an obvious touch, but it's a good touch because it does tie into the series that much more. We got the new rocking version of the Fire Emblem theme, very much similar to how we got the rocking theme of the Hyrule. Like, it's funny, when I got a chance to properly listen to the Direct, how much that song reminded me so much of that opening bit of the Hyrule Warriors theme.
Oh no, I'm pretty sure Koei Tecmo have this butt rock filter. They just pass Nintendo music through and just they're like, okay, we're just gonna make these rock versions of all these songs from the series that we're remaking essentially as a Warriors game, and they just pass it through this rock filter, and then you get these stylin' rock versions of all these classic Fire Emblem and Zelda songs.
Mm-hmm. Now, what I am curious about, I want to take a closer look at this the trailer. I'm not sure if it's going to get a full analysis not, or just a quick look at secrets and stuff, but I did notice that the troops that you were fighting, at least that they were made up with, there were some with swords. I saw a few axes in there. I'm pretty sure there's spears in there. So I do wonder if the weapon triangle is going to play a part in this game, or it's just they have all the different weapons, but whatever.
That's a good question, because at the end of the day, this is a Warriors game, so you don't want to have too many obstacles coming in between the player and then mowing down legions of grunts, basically. So, yeah, it's an interesting design question. Do they include the weapon triangle, because that's so important to Fire Emblem, even if that kind of impedes the action a little bit, or do they just throw that out the window in favor of pure action? That's a good question.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they'll have all those different units mixed in together, or if they'll have a group of spear wielders, a group of swordsmen, a group of axe wielders, and you can maybe freely switch between all the different characters that you have, and you want to have a team that's, that covers all your bases and can do all that stuff. I've played a few Warriors games at this point, and they do a pretty good job of tailoring the experience so that it still feels like Warriors, but also feels like the game they're basing it on. So I'm very curious what extra steps they're going to take to make Fire Emblem Warriors feel like Fire Emblem.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I think one thing we can say for sure is that they're going to blow the lid off this game at E3. If it's coming in fall, they're going to really give us a much, much more in-depth look at probably exactly what you're asking during E3.
Yeah, I mean, we got those that playable demo at E3 for Hyrule Warriors. I expect something similar where it's going to be Chrom and maybe a lesser known character, maybe somebody with a completely different play style. Hard to say, because I think that is the big concern for more old school Fire Emblem fans. A lot of us do not want to see just the game made up of nothing but Marth, Chrom, and Corrin, and their games. We want to see representation from Fire Emblem GBA. A lot of people want Hector in the game, who is one of the few lords who wields an axe, and he's incredibly badass. Personally, I would love to see Lyn, because she's one of my favorite characters, just from a characterization standpoint. And of course, they could get Roy, they could get Ike. There's just characters we don't know about that they could help. Sort of like, hey, you want to know more about Genealogy of the Holy War? Here's a character from that game that you can be like, I wonder what that's from, and maybe check out their game if they release it. So it could be a way to introduce not people who are just getting into Fire Emblem to the characters from those old games. And it's not a guarantee, but I'd love to see them have a representation from across the entire series and not just the more recent popular ones. Yeah,
no, I think you touched on something very important there. Like, one thing I can say for sure is that hardcore Fire Emblem fans don't want this to turn out to be Smash Brothers Awakening and Fate's Warriors, and to so many people, especially newer fans, Fire Emblem really is just like Awakening and Fates. And I think we're in safe hands with Koei Tecmo, because look at what they did with Hyrule Warriors. I mean, the roster of playable characters in that game, even without DLC, I think they reached a little deeper than anyone expected them to, even before DLC.
Oh, Agatha?
DLC, Agatha, exactly, and she was part of the core game. But then you get all this DLC, and that they basically supported the game for about more than a year after its original release, and you've got characters that no one expected. I mean, Marin.
Yeah.
Link's Awakening, like, come on. So I think that, if anyone knows what characters people are going to want out of this game, it's going to be Koei Tecmo, and they're not going to be just pulling from Awakening and Fates. They're going to dig deep, and they're really going to pull out some of the most requested, characters from older or Japan-only Fire Emblem games. I would be shocked if they didn't do that.
Yeah, I really hope that's the case. So
yeah,
we'll see. But, well, they actually, I was like wondering, like, how are they going to cover? Because we got through those 3 games. Like, man, it's already been 10 minutes. What are they coming to spend the rest on? And of course, they finally revealed the mobile title, which is officially called Fire Emblem Heroes. And that got the rest of the 10 minutes. And I'm curious what you think of the game first, before I give my thoughts.
It looks to me like a microtransaction-enabled version of Fire Emblem. Like, I was watching the gameplay overview and how you can summon heroes using orbs, and those orbs, you can either earn them through the game or you can pay for them. So automatically it's reminding me of so many other microtransaction-based games that I played, which, I mean, that may not be for me, but again, I'm not necessarily the target audience here. Like, it's easy to get all up in arms and say, oh, microtransactions, boo, Nintendo. But this is a mobile game. This is what they're trying to do. They didn't do it with Super Mario Run, but they're doing it now. So I say, let's let them give it a shot and see how it works out for them.
Yeah, and I pretty much agree. I think I was very much reminded of Kingdom Hearts Unchained Key watching this. Just how it's completely free. It's bite-sized things that you can do, featuring a lot of well-known characters. And here's the basics of it, and you don't have to pay, but here's a bunch of options in case you do want to pay. And we saw some of the prices in there, and they get pretty high for the orbs. And I will say, the only time I got really iffy about the orbs and that whole system with microtransactions was when they were talking about unlocking the characters and whatnot, and how it required 5 orbs. And I'm like, oh god, I don't remember him earning that. Like, I saw 1 orb earned from that example they gave us, and I was like, oh no, that's a bad sign. If the economy's like that, especially if you're they're encouraging you to spend more because it'll be cheaper if you do it more often in that one go. It's like,
right.
Oh, you devious SOBs. That is like, if you really want the one you want to have, that's something else. So I can see that, like, that is very cleverly designed to get people to spend money on this game, and people totally will. I can totally see people doing it. But here's the thing. People complained about Mario not being free or, not being all that. Fire Emblem is the complete opposite. It is free to play.
Yeah.
Only microtransactions. You do not have to spend a dime if you do not want to. And unfortunately, they did show enough of the game, like this whole training thing, where it does seem like you'll be able to earn orbs at least slowly in the game itself without having to spend any money. But it's really going to come down to, do you want to take the time, or do you want to just buy it so you can get the heroes that you want? Fortunately, you have them for good. They do not have permadeath in this game, as they clearly pointed out when Lon Ku died in the demonstration. There's like, characters just return, you're good. So, because they could get really devious. Your character died, you have to re-roll to get him back, or spend orbs to get him back. I think
they know they couldn't possibly do that. I mean, they would have so many complaints and angry players. They probably knew from the beginning that they couldn't do that. Mm-hmm. I mean, really, it just comes down to the classic free-to-play question. Do you want to play for free for a long time to get the same things you can get instantly by purchasing them? And I mean, that's, it's a fair question. I can see people spending money on this game. Mm-hmm. For sure. I can see Fire Emblem fans really going hard on this game, but, free-to-play is a tricky beast, and we already know that because we're talking about a fan base that is used to playing the traditional gaming model, not free-to-play, we're talking about a fan base that may be less open to the idea of spending money like that to begin with. So it really is going to be interesting to see how this game does, because obviously we know that shareholders didn't like Nintendo's pricing model for Super Mario Run. They thought Nintendo was leaving money on the table by not going free-to-play. Well, now they're doing free-to-play with Fire Emblem Heroes. Mm-hmm. So here's their chance to prove to shareholders, one way or the other, hey, what you want isn't going to work for us, or, hey, maybe we should do some free-to-play stuff in the future to fill out the rest of our releases as well. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be really interesting from an experimental point of view, I think, to see how Fire Emblem Heroes actually does.
That's the really funny thing, is that, there's all those complaints about Mario should have been free or should have been free to play. It's like, okay, here's your free to play game. Now waiting for more complaints about why do I have to do all this microtransactions?
I know. I mean, what's really sad is that the predominant reaction that I've seen on my Twitter feed and elsewhere online is not, oh, cool, Fire Emblem Heroes is coming out February 2nd on Android. It's Android owners going, ha, Apple, iPhone owners, we got you back, we got our revenge. And I'm like, really, guys? Is this what it's come down to? Like, come on. Like, this game's coming out on February 2nd. Fire Emblem fans have a reason to be excited. Can we stop the platform slinging and just, play the game? And I'm looking at Nintendo of America's Twitter right now, and they obviously tweeted out the image saying, available February 2nd on Google Play, available soon on iPhone and iPad. So I honestly don't think that iPhone owners are going to be waiting that long. I feel like it might be even within February.
The only thing that got to me about that is the fact that I have an iPhone. So
I know.
And I'm the Fire Emblem guy of the team. The only one of us that has an Android and Google Play is Andre.
Yeah. So, and we know how much Andre is excited for Fire Emblem.
Oh, yeah. He's totally excited for it. That's why he's here. The funny thing is, he did do the original review of Fire Emblem Awakening, and I remember him actually liking the game, but it's just not something he would play actively or by
actively
choice.
Seek out.
Yeah. He did it for review because it was a big game, and that's about it. And the thing is, we're gonna have to force him to play it because, we don't really have a choice. But no, I definitely will be picking this up as soon as it is available on the iPhone, because let's get into the gameplay here. And I think it does a good job of differentiating itself from standard Fire Emblem. It plays like it, but it's also different. That's one of the big questions we had about this game going forward. Is how are they going to make it feel like Fire Emblem while not stepping on the toes of the mainline series? Again, the idea of, I have this on mobile, why would I bother on the full-fledged game or the 3DS game, whatever.
Right.
And by having it constricted to a single screen while maintaining a lot of the tactics, like you have to break through walls, there's the different land types that impede your movements or only allow certain units to go across. That is very smart, and keeping it incredibly easy to control, where you just choose your unit, choose where you want them to go. You can even tap on it to just automatically get the attack while still maintaining the weapon triangle and not dumbing anything down too much that we saw. Now, you talked about your major complaint that you saw. The major complaint that I'm seeing about all this is that it looks too simple, both from a gameplay standpoint and from a visual standpoint. A lot of people are comparing this to a Flash game, and I'll be honest, they're not entirely wrong. It does seem very Flash-based, but on the other hand, I like the cute sprites. I like the new artwork we're getting. We're getting brand new voice acting for each of the characters, along with this new artwork and sprites. And this battle ballot that they put out for Fire Emblem Heroes, where people can vote for who they want to be in, I am surprised to see every game represented, every character represented. That is telling to me just how many different characters will be available in this game to play, and hopefully be put in at some point.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty cool. I mean, it seems pretty clear from that angle, at least, that just because this is a mobile game, Nintendo isn't treating it like a casual title. Like, they are treating this game as a game for the hardest of hardcore Fire Emblem fans because of this crazy character or potential character roster you can draw from. So it's interesting. I mean, they're really expecting that people who own Android and iOS platforms are also going to be hardcore Fire Emblem fans and go so much in this game that they spend money on it. And I don't know how that shakes out. Like you said, as soon as I saw the art style, I had a feeling people were going to be complaining about that, and you're right. It does look very Flash-based, and it's a little cutesy, and I don't know how that's going to work out for them in a game like this. I mean, on 3DS, it's fine because you've got that core audience there, right there in front of you. But on mobile, is enough of that audience going to, shift over to mobile to play this game, to necessitate that kind of art style? On the other hand, if they went before the, super fluid pixel animation that Fire Emblem is known for, then they're taking something away from classic Fire Emblem as we know it on prior hardware. So, it is interesting. It's looks similar to Fire Emblem, but it's definitely has kind of its own vibe to it as well. And I think that's important, though, because I think they need to keep their mobile efforts separate from the rest of what they do.
Yeah, and you pretty much nailed it. The other thing that stood out is it is an original story. We have a few original characters here, as well as your character being a summoner who is bringing in all these different characters from across all of Fire Emblem, and they're not necessarily on your side because they're getting brought on the other side, so you can fight them and get heroes that way, and there'll be challenge in those fights. So I do like the steps they've taken to differentiate itself while also being hopefully addictive. But because here's the other thing, the other thing I saw was like people were like, oh god, it's a gacha game, which GATCHA, like those gacha balls from Japan.
Gachapon,
yeah. So because you don't know which one you're going to get, you just got to push it and see what the randomizer gives you, and that's going to be interesting. Like people trying to get their favorites again, tying into the free-to-play model and the microtransactions to buy those orbs, so you can get the character you want. Again, I was thinking of a few of the Final Fantasy games that have been put out on mobile that use similar tactics. Not all the bravest. There's something.
No, there's. I was just going to say, Final Fantasy Brave Exvius does this right now. And it's exactly the same kind of gachapon system. And honestly, people shouldn't really be surprised by that. I mean, that is the go-to, like the de facto standard for games of this type.
And I've heard a lot of people say Brave Exvius is really good.
Yeah, I've heard that too. I haven't played it myself. Again, it's really hard for me to overcome that initial barrier of wanting to play a game on my phone when I could just as easily play on my 3DS. And I don't, to be frank, I don't really see Fire Emblem Heroes changing that in terms of my own time spent as a gamer. I mean, obviously, we're going to cover the game in any capacity that we can. But yeah, I mean, nothing I saw in Fire Emblem Heroes, I mean, I think it's really cool for people who want to play this on a mobile platform, but I would just be more likely to go boot up Fire Emblem Fates or Awakening instead.
I'll be honest, this so far is the game I'm most likely to boot up on my own time to just play.
Okay.
Out of all of Nintendo's offerings. Now, that's not a guarantee because, I'm a huge Kingdom Hearts fan, and Unchained Key came out, and I still, I put in time with that, but eventually I fell away. I don't know whether that's because of lack of time or lack of interest, but I did stop playing Unchained Key, and that it's a mobile title, and I play just about every Kingdom Hearts game immediately to the end as much as I can. So,
yeah,
that's hard to say, but as it's structured right now, and for the job or anything like that, even beyond that, I could definitely see myself playing this a lot more than Super Mario Run and definitely Miitomo.
Yeah, well, maybe this means that their third major tentpole mobile release will be the one that I play and that you guys don't care about. Because now we've had Mario Run for Andre, we've had Fire Emblem Heroes for you, but there's still not a Nintendo mobile game that I've been able to say, okay, I'm going to be playing this all the time. Maybe Rhythm Heaven. Maybe we're going to see a Rhythm Heaven mobile game. Definitely not.
How much do you care about Animal Crossing?
Yeah, exactly, I know. But you did touch on something there with... when you're talking about Fire Emblem Heroes and Kingdom Hearts Unchained Key. And I think the reason you might have fallen away from that, and the reason some people might fall away from this, is because the story is treated in mobile games like this as if it's kind of like an ongoing season, and that you can't really just get to the end. You can't just keep playing and get to the end because, they're trying to kind of keep you paced with everyone else who's playing the game. And I don't know if they're going to have that exact same kind of story structure, but I can almost be sure that, yes, I know they say they're having an original story in Fire Emblem Heroes, but let's be honest, it's going to be a paper-thin story that has, like, a paper-thin reason for all these different Fire Emblem characters from different games coming together. Like, if you want a traditional, deeper story, you're going to have to play one of the 3DS or Switch games. Like, there's no way you're going to get a deep story or a story-based experience in Fire Emblem Heroes.
That did remind me when I was like, wait, what? When I saw that Nomura, there was an interview with Tetsuya Nomura, and he was excited about season 2 of Unchained Key starting up. I'm like, wait, what? Season 2? The hell is this?
Exactly, and that's the thing, yeah.
And that's like, oh no, where's the complete story for this thing? Like, how long is that going to take to get all of that out? And what are they going to cover? And what's going to happen? Is it going to be just paper thin and not really matter that much? Or can we just count on the stuff from back cover that's coming out with 2.8 to basically cover what we need to know? But anyway, going to Fire Emblem, an idea I had when you're talking about that, I think one way they might be able to stave that off, at least some way, it'd be kind of cool if each season focused on a new threat. Like actual TV series. Like, all right, we took care of this threat. Next season, oh no, now this threat happened. We've got to take care of this going on. And now here's all these new characters and situations and things going on. Where like multiple continents, like, okay, this entire season takes place on this continent, and next season it's the next one, and there's different layouts or something to that effect. I doubt that's going to be the case, but it'd be a little bit more interesting, I suppose.
Yeah, no, I think there really are several different angles they can take with this, original story they're using for Fire Emblem Heroes. I'm just saying, don't expect, I could be wrong, but going off of prior games in a similar sphere on mobile, I would say don't expect some crazy story in this game. The kind that you would expect in Awakening or Fates or the upcoming Echoes. So it is Echoes, right? I can't keep these freaking names straight. Okay, cool.
Yeah, no, I agree, but overall, I'm not completely sold on it, but I like the structure that they've shown so far, and I think it's worth taking a look at. Like, even if I didn't have this job or, covering Fire Emblem or anything like that, I would still check out this game when it came out.
Yeah, no, me too. Either way, it's free to play. No matter what, when this game comes out, I'm going to check it out and see what I think. And maybe I'll stick with it. Who knows?
Yeah, we'll see. Well, any final thoughts on the Fire Emblem Direct as a whole?
No, I think really I hope that we see more mini directs like this in the future that are just packed with information. Like I said, none of us were expecting. All three of us were like, okay, this is going to be like a casual direct. No, they started and they were just, blow by blow, announcement, and then they were done. Mm-hmm. So I'd love to see more compact, condensed directs like that in the future.
Yeah, it was a good sign, and it's good to have a direct again, cover this stuff, get stuff to talk about. It's nice to have things to say, and again, actually going back to Heroes, like, it's crazy that it's coming out February 2nd. That is so soon.
I know. I mean, I don't think. Yeah, I mean, we weren't expecting that or the May release date for Echoes. Like, they've clearly been working on Fire Emblem stuff behind the scenes without saying anything about it, and now it's all almost ready for release.
Yeah, I'm totally cool with that. And overall, I agree with you. It was a very solid direct. I got some cool information. Maybe not everything you'd want, but I'd say the bases we're covering. Like, if you're a Fire Emblem fan, you're pretty well set, whether you're casual or otherwise, for the next 2 years. Which, good time. It's still a good time to be a Fire Emblem fan.
And I guess maybe one more thing to bring up as an addendum at the end here. I'm actually reading, the sources are going back and forth. I'm actually reading that Fire Emblem Heroes might actually be coming to iOS on the same day as Android. There seems to be some confusion, but some people seem to think that some sources are reporting that Fire Emblem Heroes is coming to iOS on the same day as Android. So I don't know for sure, but I'm looking into it now, and that seems to be a possibility.
Well, let's be honest. Like, there's a few mistakes going on with Nintendo.
God, right?
Like the spelling error with the gameplay,
and then the February 18th direct.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
They posted to their YouTube page.
It's like,
yeah,
we were looking at that. I was like, well, at least we weren't the only one frazzled by all this.
Yeah, exactly.
So, who knows? But we got the basics in here, and that's all that matters. And I still feel like this was a pretty good direct, and I'm looking forward to checking all of it out. So,
yeah, same here.
All right, well, I think that covers it for our Fire Emblem Direct discussion, so thank you for watching, and if you like this video, be sure to like us on Facebook and Twitter at GameXplain, and of course, be sure to subscribe to GameXplain for more on Fire Emblem and other things gaming too. Until next time, bye.